in front of me, there was, I think, five people, three sitting down, two standing up. And I've got a picture of what they look like. Um, and there was no surprise to me when it happened. And I'm looking at these people, and I immediately thought, there's no such thing as time. Because I always struggled with that. And I know a lot of people say that there has to be time, but there isn't. There is no time whatsoever. And that will come apparent later. And you know everything. I didn't have to ask any questions. And again, that feeling of love that you have, it was so, so powerful.
I'm here today with Jock Spackman. Jock is a channeler and he does it through a unique medium of photography. And he is here to share some of his photos with us and some of his incredible experiences as well. Jock, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you as my guest.
Hi, Tia. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really looking forward to this. My story is a little bit unique, but it started pretty much from the day I was born. Um, when I was born, my mother wasn't able to look after me, and my brother was being looked after by my aunt and uncle. So there was nowhere for me to go, and my dad was in the forces. So my dad went to the local priest, who was Catholic, and said, "Is there anywhere that I could be held while my mother was ill in hospital until she came out?" So the priest came back with all the Catholic homes are full up. We have a Protestant home. Is it okay if we put them in there? So that was the only place I could go. So I went into a Protestant home. And at 12 o'clock, they would bring all the babies out into this play area type thing, and all the mothers would come and have a look at them. And then at 1 o'clock, they'd take me out of the cupboard and bring me out so that I didn't infect the Protestants. And that's what it's like growing up in Scotland. It's so divisive. So for about this first 6 months to a year, I was never picked up. So even today, I don't really react to people wanting to cuddle me and things. It just feels a bit strange. But yeah, after that, I obviously went home, and I can remember everything. Being in the pram, looking at the little pram, thinking I can't wait to be in there because I'll be older. I remember the shops in the street had flat roofs, and even from a pram, I'm thinking they're going to get wet when it rains. So I was very aware of my environment. And one day, I'm in the kitchen, I've just been fed, and I used to take my bib into the living room. So I'd be on my hands and knees crawling. And I got to the hallway. And in the hallway, there was a coat hanging at the front door. And inside that coat, there was a monster. And it frightened the life out of me seeing this monster. And I immediately thought, I don't want to be here. I want to go back. So I was very aware that I'd come from somewhere. And all I wanted to do was just go back. And I had this feeling of being pushed, that nothing actually happened. So um, I'm in that house till about 2 years old. So again, I can remember so much about it. Then I moved to another house, and I remember the first day getting there. And as I grew up in Scotland, our house looked onto the countryside, so it was absolutely stunning. And then had to go to school, and that was probably the worst day of my life. I hated school with a passion. I really didn't like it, and uh, I kept having that thing in the classroom where everything would be pushing away because I kept wanting to go back. Because I didn't like the thing that I saw. I didn't like the school. I just wanted to go back to where I came from. And um, growing up in Scotland at that time, I can remember a missionary coming to the school telling us that the Protestant school up above us, they weren't like us. And he actually said they weren't human beings like us. They were different. and we had to dislike them. And then you had the Jews, we had to dislike the Jews as well. And then you had the Tibetans who wore orange, we had to dislike them. And I remember thinking as a kid, why do we have to dislike so many people? It just didn't seem right. And again, I'm still doing this thing where I'm pushing myself back all the time because I just didn't want to be there. And I remember my brother used to go to the shops to get some groceries, and my mum and dad asked me to go, and I couldn't remember what it was that I had to get, so they had to write it down. And I'd go to the shop and I'd give the list to the person in the shop to get the groceries and bring them home. And one day, my parents actually said to me, "You're stupid. You'll never be as good as your brother." And when you're a kid, that really sticks with you. So again, I'm doing this pushback that I don't want to be here. And it was a strange environment to grow up in when the back of your house faced the country and it was stunning. Yet you walk out the front door and you're met with this religious conflict that was huge in the 60s in Scotland. But I remember my dad coming home once and he said to my mum, he was going for a job, he said the first question on the paper was, "What religion are you?" Not what your name was or where you came from, it was what religion are you? And being Catholic, I was expected to vote for Celtic, and Protestants went for, Rangers. It was that sort of environment. You were either this or that. I remember thinking of the kids in the street. We didn't care who we were. We just all played. And it was great. So having that mixed upbringing and not realizing I was dyslexic, very, very dyslexic. So at school, anything in English, I was the worst person in the school. And I couldn't figure out why. So I tended to go inward a lot. As a child, I spent a lot of time on my own. And I was always aware that there was a God, but it wasn't necessarily the God that was being taught in my school, because we just had to dislike so many people being Catholic. It's a big job. So after all this conflict, we decided to move to England. So we moved to England, and I was in school at 13. And I remember when I was 15, suddenly the school bell went, and I realized I could get home without being beaten up. I'd never had that in Scotland because I had to pass a Protestant school to get home. So I didn't realize that my whole childhood was based around fear to get home. And I remember thinking, if we're reincarnated, I don't want to come back because I don't want to do school. It was that bad. And all the time I'm doing this pushing backwards, trying to get back to where I came from. So England was good because nobody asked you what your religion was. And I found that really strange. And coming up to leaving school, I didn't know what I was going to do because I couldn't read. And I actually thought I was being stupid. And to grow up with that is quite hard and difficult. So I'm looking for a job. I think, what am I going to do? And then my art teacher said to me, "Have you ever thought of being an artist?" And I remember thinking, is that a job? Is that something that you can actually do? And he went, "Yeah, there's an art studio in London that are looking for a messenger." So I thought, okay, I'll give that a go because I just loved art. And on the day of the interview, I had jeans and t-shirt on. Then my dad said to me, "You can't wear that. It's an interview. You're going to dress to impress." So he put me in my brother's bright blue three-piece suit. My brother's about 6 inches shorter than me. So the suit here, it looked ridiculous. So I go for the interview in this suit, and I'm on the first floor, and the two bosses meet me, and there's 3 coffees on the table, and they had director's chairs. So I didn't know if you sit back in a director's chair, you go backwards. So I sat down, went backwards, the table went up, coffees went everywhere. Oh my God, worst thing ever. And they looked at my pictures that I'd drawn. And he looked at them and he said, these are good. And he said, I want you to do me a favor. Go home and put on a jeans and t-shirt and come back in. So I did that. He took me upstairs, and here's these guys that everyone was individual. There wasn't one person that was similar to anyone else, and they all did something different. And for the first time ever, I actually felt like I was in the right place. And so I started working there, and there was airbrush artists, lettering artists, and I didn't realize at the time they were some of the best artists in London, because we were working on the biggest projects in the world from this little studio. And as a messenger, I used to go to a place called Berkeley Square where J. Walter Thompson was to drop off, the work. And in that square, there was a shop called Jack Barclay's, and he sold Rolls Royces, and you couldn't go in. So as a kid, I used to look in the window at these Rolls Royces and think to myself, one day I'm going to have a Rolls Royce. And this is me kind of thinking, if you're going to have an affirmation, have a good one. So I thought, I'm going to have a Rolls Royce. And guess what? I never got one, because I didn't want one. And that was the part of my growth of thinking, think for what you want, but if you don't want it, you don't get it. What am I going to do with a Rolls Royce? It's pointless. So that was a big lesson for me. And whilst watching all the artists that were around me with all their special talents, I used to think, what am I going to do? There had to be something that was special for me, but I ended up doing everything. So I was good at everything, but not brilliant at one thing. And I left there, went to a design studio to get more knowledge, and I was working for 21 people. And when I left, they replaced me with 5 people, which was a massive thing for me, because I still had this lack of confidence thing, wasn't sure. So I had my own studio, working away, and then about the age of 27, I watched a TV show on dyslexia. I had no idea that I was dyslexic. So I was 27 years old, suddenly realized, oh my God, that's why I'm brilliant at science, at chemistry, but I can't read. So I suddenly realized I wasn't stupid. I was actually quite clever. I couldn't have gotten to where I was in an art studio if I wasn't clever. So that was a big breakthrough. And it was at that point, and having listened to lots of channelers who'll tell you that we pick our battles before we come here, that was a great gift. Being dyslexic is one of the best things that I think has ever happened to me, because it's made me a much better artist. And it takes you in a direction that you need to go. So I now realize why I was given that dyslexia. So my psychic ability got better, my intuition got better, and after that, to keep it short, I then moved to Australia. And so I'm 30 years old, living in Australia, and I'm doing photography, because the industry in art had kind of failed a bit over here. So I couldn't get a job. So I invented a photography system. So I'm doing real estate. And one day I go to this man's house and I photographed the inside of it, and it's raining outside. So I thought, oh God. So I thought, I'll sit in here until it stops raining. In the meantime, the man who owns the house came home. So I shouts out, "Hello, I'm Jock, the photographer," and he shouts out, "Yeah, yeah, I knew you'd be here." So he comes in, sits down next to me, and we're chatting away. And I said to him, "I hope you have better luck uh, selling your house as I'm trying to get a mortgage." And he said, "What's the problem?" I said, "Well, I hadn't worked for 3 years because I sold part of my business, but now when I buy a house, the bank's looking at the last 3 years thinking, well, you haven't worked." So I had three people trying to get me a mortgage, and it was the last day. So if I didn't get a mortgage that day, I wasn't going to get this house. So I'm sitting in this guy's house thinking, you know what? Forget it. If I'm not going to get the house, I'm not going to get the house. So sits there, the guy comes home, and I'm telling him about my plight, can't get a mortgage. And he said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "No." He said, "I approve the mortgages at the bank." I said, "You're kidding me." And he said, "No." And he said, "What are your circumstances?" I told him. He phoned up a lady. She came up from the bank, came to his house. We signed the document. And within 5 to 5, I got the mortgage. And that was another one of those magic moments where you thought, I gave everything away and I got it. And it's a big moment when you realize that when you ask for something, you shouldn't put anything in front of it. Like, I need a better job to get this. You just ask for the mortgage or the house that you want and you get it. And that's, I think, the big secret of being human. You know, we've got the power to attract anything that we want. In fact, there's a story where I'm clairvoyant. I don't really do readings, but this girl came to me and she wanted a reading, and her life was a mess. She was a drug addict, was living on the streets. You name it, she had it. So I put the cards down for her. I had every bad card you can get in that pack come up. It was a nightmare. So I said to this young girl, "Oh, wow, this is stunning." I said, "I can see a new job. I can see a lottery win. You're going to meet this guy." And she was on cloud nine. And 3 months later, she comes up from the streets. She goes, "Oh my God, I got a new job. I've met a boyfriend. I won some money on the lottery, just as you said." And that's the power of how we create everything. She didn't put any barriers in the way of winning the lottery because I told her she would. And she created it. And we all do it. And I remember once I said to a friend of mine, "Oh, the next girl I meet will probably have cancer. The next girl I met had cancer." That quick. So all these things, are happening in our psyche that we don't really think about. And a bit on from that, I'm working away, really successful. And that's the day I dropped off the roll of film at the major shopping centre, went in to get a coffee. I picked up the tray. I had a sandwich on there, my coffee on there, and I turned around and crossed over. That thing that I've been doing my whole life, pushing, suddenly I was pushed and I'm straight on the other side. And in front of me, there was, I think, 5 people, 3 sitting down, 2 standing up. And I've got a picture of what they look like. And there was no surprise to me when it happened. And I'm looking at these people and I immediately thought, there's no such thing as time. Because I always struggled with that. And I know a lot of people say that there has to be time, but there isn't. There is no time whatsoever. And that will come apparent later. And you know everything. I didn't have to ask any questions. And again, that feeling of love that you have, it was so, so powerful that after about, say, 10 minutes of me being over there, I had to come back because I hadn't died. So my body's still as it is, but I'm experiencing this thing. So I come back, I look at my tray, the coffee hasn't moved. And I'm actually walking. So I crossed over and not a split second had gone by in all that time. So I looked at the chair where I normally sit. I walk over, I sit down. I'm in absolute shock. It was like I was totally reprogrammed. On my tray, there was a bank book with a check in it. And I looked at that check and thought, are you kidding me? I have to do banking? And I'm looking at people in the coffee shop and they're not looking at me. And after this had this horrific thing happen. So I started looking at people coming in the shops. And I'm going, I don't know who these people are, but I should. I should know everybody. Suddenly the world had just turned right upside down. And the girl shouts out, Jock, your phone's ready. So I picked that up. I walked straight past the bank because I couldn't go into the bank. I get to my car. I turn the car on, the radio comes on and it's blaring. No, turn the radio off. Everything was wrong in the world. Nothing fitted in. So I thought, I've got to drop these films off. The pictures. So I dropped the pictures off. Oh, good. I get in the car. I go home. I lie down thinking, what on earth happened? If I had died, it would have been easier because you'd have your story. I didn't die. I had this thing that I've been doing my whole life, as they say in the Bible, that on the end of days, God will come and take you back without dying. So I don't know if that was in my head at the time, but the fact I just crossed over and then came back again. So I was in a psychic church, and the next day I went and spoke to someone and said, I just crossed over. And they literally thought I was a loony. I thought, I can't tell people about this. No one's going to believe me. So it took me about 6 months to get back to some sort of normality. It was that traumatic. And I started realizing that everything's a system and we all work within that system. So, you get up, you go to work, you get a mortgage, you do all this. And I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. I want to be me. And when you start taking control of your own life, the universe goes, this guy's different. He wants to do what he's come here to do. So everything around you starts to change. And it doesn't necessarily start to change for the better, but it just starts to change, and you start looking at the whole world differently. And you start realizing that you can create your own world. And that's what I started to do. So I started to leave the system by doing things like, I don't want to be stuck in traffic. So that was all I said. So I'd start work at 10 o'clock. Because one of my clients said, oh, can you start at 10, not at 9? But, okay, I'll do that with everyone. So suddenly I'm not stuck in traffic because I asked for it. So all these things were changing in my life. And then I got into a quiet period where I wasn't doing much work at all. And there was this young fella, he had Asperger's, and no one would teach him. He's always been thrown out of schools, and he wanted to learn photography. So I'm not doing much. So I said to him, look, I'll teach you photography 1 day a week. So we started doing that. And about 5 months in, I said to him, let's take a picture of smoke. Now I'll just bring this up. That's what smoke looks like when you photograph it. And I've done this at high speed. So I set this image, or the incense stick up, and I said to this kid, okay, let's start taking pictures of smoke. And because he's got Asperger's, he's gone, well, there's nothing there. I said, well, I know there's nothing there, but let's just take pictures of smoke. So he kept refusing. So I picked up my camera, I pointed it towards the smoke, and I took a picture, just the one. Then he starts taking lots of pictures, and we download them. There's some quite witty, nice little bits of flowy smoke as they are, and thought nothing of it. A week later, I do a photography job, and I download this. Boom. That isn't just smoke. And I sat there with a glass of wine, then another glass of wine, looking at this thing, going, that is incredible. There's no way that is by chance. And can you see the alien head in there?
Yes, I can.
The body of the lady. It is so unique. So I'm fascinated by this thing. So the next day, I set up a studio and I captured this. Boom. Now, this is what you call pareidolia. Some people, when you look at a cloud, will see a cat. Some people see a horse. So it's a word that we give to people that see things, images that are different. I see a horse's head in this image, and some people see a lady with flowing hair. But that's the beauty of pareidolia. And when you blow it up, again, I hope people can see this. Well, probably not, but there's millions upon millions of dots in there. And that's the energy that's being released by the incense stick. And because energy doesn't die, it's transformed into these images. So this image here, it was in a gallery. I print my work at 1.5 meters high, so they're really big. So it's in this gallery, and at night time, they've got a little dim light on. And in the morning, the owner of the restaurant across the street came up to the gallery, and she said, do you know, everyone that left my restaurant went across the street to look at that picture. And the fascinating thing about these images is the energy that was used to create them stays in them. So when you put these on the wall and you're in a dim room, they glow. It's quite incredible how that energy is transformed into the image. So moving along, this is what I saw when I was 1 year old. That's what was coming out of the court. So I photographed that about 60 years later after I saw it. And again, if that's what smoke looks like, how on earth do I get that? It's quite incredible. Now, the next one, this is what spirit looks like. Oh, there we go. That's what I saw when I was on the other side. There was 5 of these things that just looked like that. And when I was there, everything was white, but the spirit was whiter than everything else. Obviously here the background's black. But I've heard of many people who've said that when they've had a near-death experience, at that moment before they die, spirit comes and takes them. And that's what's happening in this picture. So as soon as I took that shot, I realized that is spirit. That's what it looks like in its true form. A lot of people, when they die, have their own experience where they see relatives and they can recognize them. But I just saw spirit. And that's what the spirit looked like to me when I was there. The other thing too, you hear a lot of these near-death experiences and people say they saw Jesus and they took them and things. I remember thinking to myself, I didn't see Jesus. I didn't see God. I just saw these images. And years later, I'm watching a show, and there's a guy in Texas with a farm, and this guy saying that he's got these aliens flying around, and lots of people come and visit them. And someone said to him, "Have you ever asked an alien a question?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "What did you ask?" He said, "Do aliens believe in God?" And the alien said, "Yes, all aliens believe in God. God is love." And that was what I felt when I was on the other side. So it seems to make a lot of sense to me that God is love, because that's what everyone feels, and it's so overwhelming. Now, next image is that. That in itself is fascinating, because as a photographer, we try and teach images have to have a story. So if you pick up a Japanese newspaper and there's a picture on there, you should be able to tell what the subject is just by the picture. And you can see here there's a man at the bottom there, and this scary big thing looking up, looking down at it. So that's the story. And this one here, again, there's two men. One's embarrassed and the other one's laughing at him. How do you get that in smoke? How do I get a story? And because there's no time, I'm taking 6 pictures a second. And you'll have the first image that I showed you, and then you get something like this. And then the next one is smoke again. So this image grows up, has a lifespan, and dies, but in a microsecond. And that's what I experienced when I was on the other side. There's no such thing as time. And there's a show, Life Beyond 2. It's a documentary, great documentary. I remember watching it, and all the images that they were hypothesizing about what aliens would look like, I'm thinking, I've got all these in my home. And they said that if alien life was to be formed, it would be in the gases above the planets, and it would last for a microsecond and no one would be able to see it. For some reason, I'm capturing it. And as far as I know, I was interviewed by the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, and they said out of 4,000 people, they've never ever had anyone that's doing what I'm doing. And I've looked and looked and looked, and I literally cannot find anyone who's got images of this quality.
Jock,
Yep.
are these actual pictures of spirits or souls?
It's a mixture. The point of what I'm doing, there's messages in these pictures for everyone. So it's not just the picture of the alien or the ghost that I saw when I was one, or spirit. There's images in here that everyone sees things in. And I've had people look at the book before and they go, "Oh, that one's this." And I'm going, "Is it really? I just don't see it." So the gift that I'm getting from spirit is literally for everyone to look at. And again, I'll just show you this image. That to me is incredible. When you think smoke's just wispy. And I've had this image for a few years. And about a year ago, I was looking at it and I thought, that looks like a hieroglyph, because it's on one side. Egyptians don't do, front on. So I started looking at hieroglyphs, and I came across Nefertiti. And I'm thinking, that looks a bit like Nefertiti. And one of the remarkable things about this image, start to use a finger, the length of the legs and the length of the arms are really long. And if you look at a hieroglyph, the arms and the legs are really long. So there's one thing that this image has captured. The proportions are perfect. And again, it might be hard to see on the top of her head. She's wearing a pharaoh's crown. And there's a little band at the top of her head. So that's another thing. She's making an offering. As far as I know, it's only Nefertiti that's making an offering. And that's what this person here is doing. She's wearing a caprice hat, which Nefertiti used to wear as long as a big one. She's married to Akhenaten, so they may have been the parents to Tutankhamun. And what blew me away when I first saw it, at the back of her head, there's a knot. And you can just make it out in the picture. If you look at images of Nefertiti, that pharaoh's crown is knotted at the back. So the detail on this is fascinating. And then the big sucker punch was they found a bust of her head. And I looked at mine and thought, I've got no eye. The bust that they found, Nefertiti only had one eye. One eye's missing. So I've got that in this thing here. And my question, why did I get this? Why am I receiving these images? And a lot of people say, oh, are they Photoshopped? There's no way I could Photoshop that. And because of the skills that I have as an artist, I'm able to take weak smoke color and change it or enhance it into the colors we have here. So there's an example I'll be coming up to get to, but when you look at her legs, they're almost like metal. She's got yellow at the bottom, yellow arms. That's all done by spirit. It places the image in a certain area for me to capture it. And again, this is a millionth of a second. So let's go to, here we go. This really got me. Boom. The image on the left is me in Vanuatu. The image on the right is from Spirit, and it's exactly like me. The image on the right, I wasn't going to do anything with it, and I thought, oh, I'll probably put it in my collection. And seconds later, I'm looking at a folder of me in Vanuatu, and this image comes up. If it hadn't come up that quick, I would never have noticed it. But that's me in the photo. So let's go. So what I started to do, Tina, who wrote my book, I'll come to her in a minute. She said, "You're channeling these images." Oh, really? How am I doing that? And she said, "No, they're coming through you." So I did a meditation, and I asked for something really angry, like a war type thing bursting through the smoke, and I got this. You see the image of a man there? It might be hard for some people. There's a man's head there. He's got a shield here, and a sword. But a day later, I'm watching the movie The 300, and disappears. That man there, he was on screen for a fraction of a second, and it mirrors the image next to it. And that's exactly what I wanted. And then I see it in the movie. So I thought that was quite fascinating. That I'm starting to make these. I'll show you how I do it. This is the setup that I have. I've got 2 A4 frames that have got little lines of plastic, see-through plastic on them. So wherever the smoke lands within that area is how I get the color. You can see the incense stick, and behind the A4 frames here, there's 2 lights at 9,300 lumens each. So just one of these lights would light up a tennis court. They're really, really bright, and you need that to get the to capture the smoke quickly, because I need a fast shutter speed. Now you may or may not see there's an image in there that I captured. So my job is to turn it round, enhance the color wherever it falls in here, and this is the image that I captured. That again, I find that that's quite an incredible looking image. So sometimes I'll get rid of background smoke, but I'm not allowed to touch the image at all. I just know that, because they're giving them to me as they are. So all I do is use my skills to recolor it, turn it around, and basically present it so people can look at them.
Would you call this spirit photography, or what do you call it?
They're talking to me. I know that because they're showing me images from my life. So although I'm channeling, they're trying to talk to me. And it's interesting that you say that, because the next picture, I did a meditation and I said to Spirit, who's got a great sense of humor, which you'll know in a second. I said, give me an image for when I do a podcast, everyone will recognize. And I took all these pictures and I only got one image. This is the image that I got from Spirit. Does that not look like Donald Trump? Can you see that? It's a caricature of Donald Trump. Why would Spirit give me that?
Why would Spirit give you that?
I not look. I'm not into politics at all. I know in America you've got an election coming up. I'm not saying this is sent by God. The point is, here I've got this picture of Donald Trump. I didn't ask for it. I just asked for something that I could put on a podcast. And here we get image of Donald Trump, which I find absolutely fascinating. So I don't know. I'm still in the throes of this. I've been doing it for 7 years. But the more I do it, the more connected I get to Spirit, and the more it starts to talk to me. So I'm not quite there of saying, in fact, one of my points is actually, I'll show you the next shot. I'll tell you my point. I didn't necessarily believe in Jesus because of my upbringing, and I thought, is there a Jesus? So I thought, if I can get Donald Trump, so I said to Spirit, give me a picture of Jesus. I don't know if you can see it, but there's 1, 2, 3 wise men, Mary at the back, and Jesus. So Mary and Jesus are lit up. So not only did they give me a picture of Jesus, they gave me a picture of the nativity scene, which says that Jesus had been born. So this is how Spirit's communicating with me. And probably this one, Tina, who I'll get to, she said to me, can you take a picture of my twin flame? He's a golfer. I can't just ask my husband for a picture of a golfer. So I did a meditation, said to Spirit, give me a picture of a golfer, which is impossible. I got that. Someone pulling a golf buggy. And my point here, for me anyway, being clairvoyant, it's a bit hit and miss sometimes. Some clairvoyants are really, really good. I'm not that good. But I need evidence. And you get a lot of channelers who are also really good. But you can't pinpoint it and say that's 100%. Whereas I'm asking for a golfer, I get a golfer. Ask for Jesus, I got Jesus. The point is, everything you ask for, you get. And I've got proof. And I was thinking the other day, if you had a chance to spend a week with a Buddhist monk or a day with a sick person, spend the day with a sick person, because you'll learn so much more. Because all they do is go, I'm always sick, I've always got a headache, my back always aches, I don't buy lottery because I'll always lose it. They're brilliant at getting whatever they want from the universe. A Buddhist monk couldn't do that in 2 weeks. But if you look at people and how they act and what they do, you see that we do create everything around us because we're special. And when you're stuck in the system that says you have to do this, this, and this, that's how your life goes. I don't put anything in front of whatever I want now. So if I want a house, I'll get a house. It's up to Spirit to get it for me. And they know exactly what house I need to get. And my next shot kind of goes on with that. I'll show this out. I'll talk about Tina. So after the golfer shot, I'm on a big high. I'm thinking, this is great. I'm getting what I asked for. So I did a meditation and I said, look, can I have a picture of my face and a picture of a horse? So I took these two and I got really excited. I thought, my God, there's a face and a horse, which you never get. So I sent them to Dubai. And Tina calls me back and she says, "That's amazing." She said, "What time did you take the pictures at?" I said, 3 o'clock. That's a picture of her daughter, and she was horse riding at 3 o'clock. And to me, that's absolutely amazing to capture that. And to tell you about Tina, I was in a podcast a year ago. I didn't have a book. My website was okay. Podcast went well. And Tina woke up one morning. She lives in Dubai, and she looks on the ceiling and she sees a book. And she's never seen that before. So she looks away, looks back up again, and here's this book flickering on the ceiling. She thinks to herself, "I don't want to write a book." So that day she looks at a podcast and she thinks that's good. And she then goes back about another 300 podcasts and finds me. She looks at the podcast with me in it and she goes, "I'm going to write that guy's book." So she calls me up, and instantly it was like speaking to my sister. I'd never met this woman, and she knew exactly how to write the book because I couldn't. Being dyslexic, I was never going to get a book. So again, I wanted a book, and I got a book. I didn't ask for someone to write it. So whatever you ask for, you get. So be really careful what you ask for. And for people who want to know if pets go to heaven, 2 weeks ago I lost my dog, Rusty. He was 17 years old, and I hadn't taken any pictures. And the other day, I go into the room where I take my pictures, and the tree outside, and I'm looking at the tree, and I'm thinking, the last time I saw that tree was when Rusty was his last day. He's still alive. So I took the pictures, and I got this. Me holding a dog. Okay, I find that absolutely fascinating that I could get that. And literally, I don't know anybody else who's getting these sorts of images. Before I talk about my cross, I'll there's lots of aliens. You can see there. This is how they grow up. Again, all this is happening in a fraction of a second. This is a good one. There's a little thing down the bottom here, and and the ones above it. So there's a story there. These things have been born before, and they're all looking down, and all happening in a fraction of a second. It's fascinating. That's the cover of the book. This lady sitting down, very religious-like. But you would never ever capture this in smoke. And lots of other people see different things in this image. I've also got an image of DNA with a snake's head on the end. So, and that spiral is normally associated with the medical industry. So why did Spirit give me that? And that was probably about 6 years ago I captured that image. So they're definitely talking to me. And about 6 months ago, I was told to paint a picture. I don't normally paint pictures, but they kept niggling at me to paint this picture. And this was my fourth attempt because I kept putting my own input into it, and I thought it's not working. So I ended up with this. You might not be able to see the scarring on the back from here, but it's two images. One is Lest We Forget, and my granddad was had bucket loads of medals from World War One. He's one of the most decorated people in Britain, and he had to run the length of 2 football fields in World War One in the trenches, and the splattering of the back is the explosions going off, blood going off everywhere, absolute mayhem. And then the second picture, painted on top, I call it the blood of Christ. And I had to angrily paint it. It's really difficult to do without the paint getting all gloggy. Again, this is about 1.5 meters tall. And to me, it represents why are we still doing this? And I think this is a clear message, even for now, from the other side, that why are we still killing people? And I didn't paint this. It came to me. And the same way with the images that I'm capturing, I don't create any of these images at all. It's impossible. They create themselves, and it's happening from the other side. So I think that, yeah, they're definitely talking to me.
I love the smoke, especially. It's incredible. If my viewers wanted to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Okay, as I work in pictures, this is the cover of my book that you can get from Amazon. There's over 100 images in it. So, and again, everyone who looks at it sees something different. And that's the beauty of spirit. They just work that way. So they talk to everyone. And if you want to have a look at my website, that's it there, Mysterious Wall Art. Now, but it says up there canvas prints. I used to do large canvas prints. They cost a few $100s to buy. They cost another $100 to send, and then the other end you spend another few $100 framing it. So you're looking at $1,000. I thought that's ridiculous. So I'm now selling digital downloads for $11. So if somebody wants to buy a picture, yeah, it's $11, and you can blow them up to 1.5 meters, so they're really crisp. And I didn't ask for this business; it just came. And where it's going to go from now, I don't know. But it's fascinating that I seem to be the only person that can actually capture all of this. I don't know if you can see the green jellyfish there. This is one of the ones that everyone loves, that shot. Again, it's frozen in time. And that is, I use this one as a screensaver. And what's special about it is it's moving. How does spirit do that? I've been sent lots of pictures from people. Some of them are jet black, pointing to arms and legs. Some of them are just a bit of whooshy smoke that you can see something, you can't see anything. But I'm getting pin sharp images from the other side. I've got lots of aliens. I've even got this one here. This is two images, two people reading a newspaper. So is there news coming? I'm not sure. But look, at the end of the day, they are amazing images. I love them. Not look, that's very spiritual. Not sure what to do with them yet, but I need to get them out there. And because I'm severely dyslexic, the images kind of stopped for a bit. I thought, okay, I need to do something with what I've got here. And I can't email. So I went to my local library, keep story short, and I went in and I said, look, I need someone that can help me with emails because I can't read. And I want something that's spiritual. The library was empty. All of a sudden, this young girl gets up, comes over, and she says, I'm spiritual. I can help you with emails. And her name is Phoenix. One of my images is called Phoenix. And she sat down. She's 23, one of the most spiritual people I've ever met. And she's so awake. It's such a joy to see. And I think that's what happened to me when I had my near death. I woke up and things started changing. And so many people around the world are starting to wake up, and there's shows like yours, whereas 20 odd years ago, it would have been laughed at. Now there's a group of people just waking up, realizing, hey, I am in control. We're amazing human beings. And we can literally create whatever we want. So thank you for looking at my photos.
Thank you for sharing them with us and for taking the time to come
Pleasure.
on and share your story. If you had one message that you would like the viewers to take away from this conversation today, what would it be?
I think it would be the best person you can possibly be, not the best person that somebody else wants you to be. We spend so much time pleasing other people and not ourselves. And before I came on the show, I was actually thinking, what spirituality And I realized it's me. It's all about me. I'm in my movie. So I have to stand up and be the star. No one else can do that. So I've created a comedy fantasy movie. Some people are in horror movies, some people are in dramas, but you create your own movie and you're the master of everything that you do. So I try to be the best person that I can possibly be. And it works and it's fun. And I'm 63 years old. I never get sick. And if I want something, I ask for it and I get it every time.
That's lovely, Jock. Thank you so much for being my guest. I've enjoyed speaking with you very much.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it. I hope people enjoy the pictures too. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.